السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم فقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التأويل وارض عنا يا رب العالمين. Ask Allah to make this another beneficial sitting for us all, and that Allah's mercy descends upon us, and that He mentions us by our names in a gathering which is far greater and purified than ours. This is our second sitting from Arba'in Nawawi, this gathering of Hadith in a very important book for the Muslim Ummah from the time it was authored until bi'idhnillah Yawm al-Qiyamah, a book where it gathers the statements of the Prophet ﷺ. And the Shaykh began with the very first hadith which we covered last week, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. That every action is based upon its intentions, and everybody will get the recompense of what they had intended. And if we look at last week's lessons, we talked about the different types of niyyah. We looked at the difference between niyyah and irada and ikhlas, and something which necessitates being certain and not having any doubt. And then we looked at how niyyah influences your actions when it changes from a normal customary action to an act of worship, and also within the realm of acts of worship how it can change the classification of one particular action. So you could do one action which is extremely identical to another action, but that niyyah can change its classification. But even more important than that, we looked at ikhlas and the importance of ikhlas and the pillars of ikhlas and the signs of a person who is mukhlis. And we mentioned that a person who is sincere is somebody who seeks Allah and the Akhirah, and he sees himself as being coming with a lot of shortcomings, and he constantly reviews his own situation. He is not disheartened when some evil afflicts him, and he is not proud and haughty when good affects him or is given to him. He is somebody who conceals his deeds, and he increases in goodness even when other people are around. These are some of the characteristics that we looked at of a person who is a mukhlis, somebody who has ikhlas. And then we also looked at some of the conditions of necessarily needed for a niyyah to be established. Every single one of us form a niyyah every single day of our lives when we perform acts of worship. And some of the conditions we looked at, and we said that there were four. And the first one, which is that a person must have strong resolve to do that action, and that resolve must continue throughout the action, and that the person must be of age of discernment, and that he makes the intention before he begins. And then we also looked at hijrah and its different types, when it could be haram, when it could be wajib, when it could be mustahab, and we left it at that. But before going on to the next hadith, which is hadith number 2, which is well known, the hadith of Jibreel, we also looked at the statement. Ibn Rajab himself mentioned the statement of Imam Shafi'i. And Imam Shafi'i said that this hadith is 1/3 of all knowledge. If the Sharia, Islam, can be summarized into one hadith or two hadith, he said this is 1/3 or one of 3 of these hadith. He said إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ is one aspect of your whole religion. And the ulama have explained that the other 2/3 comprise of the hadith of Aisha, where she said, "Man amila amalan laysa alayhi amruna fahuwa rad." Where the Prophet ﷺ said that anybody innovates or acts upon an innovation, then it will be rejected. And also the hadith of Nu'man ibn Bashir, where he said, "Al-halal." The Prophet ﷺ said, "Al-halalu bayyin wal-haramu bayyin." And we look at these ahadith because they have been collected by Imam Nawawi in his Arba'in. But what we want to focus on is continuing with the statement of Imam Shafi'i, who said that this hadith is so important that it falls into over 70 chapters of ilm, over 70 chapters of fiqh. What does he mean by that? That there are over 70 benefits and over 70 principles and laws that this hadith is connected to. And I don't think we're going to have enough time to discuss all of them today. But we will look at and try and summarize some of the ones that stand out to be the most important, bi'idhnillah. And one of the most important principles that we can learn from this hadith is to know that when you have an intention to do an action, when does talking about that action become an act of Riya? There's a fine line between Ikhlas and Riya. What is Ikhlas? Ikhlas is when you do something for the sake of Allah and seeking His Jannah. But Riya has been defined by the ulama as when you do an action, a good deed, to show other people so that they will speak good of you. That is Riya. So if a person now puts his hand in his pocket and everybody's looking at me, here's £10 for the sake of Allah, so that everybody will go around and say that this man is generous. If he is doing it with that intention, then this is an act of Riya. What about a person who likes to wear nice clothes? Every time you see him, he is wearing nice clothes, and he wants people to say and praise him for his dress sense, etc. That would not be Riya. Why? Because the missing component is good deed. When you do a good deed to be shown by others, this is Riya. So now here, Ibn Uthaymeen, Ibn Rajab as well, may Allah have mercy on them both, have talked about this because it's very important. When does talking about your own deeds or other people's deeds, when or how does that infiltrate a person's intention, and that switches from being for the sake of Allah alone? Then that same action, maybe it's 2 rak'at salat, or maybe it's hajj, maybe it's fasting, maybe anything, when it does it become for the sake of Allah, and then it gets converted straight away to an act of Riya. Allah protect us from minor shirk and all forms of shirk. The ulama have said that if a person wants to be talked about from the outset, then this is shirk and this is Riya, because his intention is not for the sake of Allah. His intention is for the sake of the creation. So if a man walks into the masjid and he wants to pray 2 rak'at, because people are looking at him, he will make it nice, he will make it long. And if people are looking at him and he wants people to look at him and speak about him, then this is an act of Riya, and his whole act of worship will not be accepted with Allah. Inna Allah tayyib wa la yaqbal illa tayyib. Allah is good and He is pure, and He will only accept what is good and what is pure. This is minor shirk. The ulama have classed Riya as minor shirk. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which is also found in Kitab al-Tawheed, where the Prophet ﷺ said that I fear for you a shirk which is even more hidden than a black ant on a dark night walking on a black wall or a dark wall. That's how delicate this matter is. This is why Sufyan al-Thawri said that there's nothing, imagine this man, he's an imam from the Salaf, he said that is nothing more harder in my life than correcting my niyyah. I have not found anything more difficult in my life than correcting my niyyah. What does that mean? That actually means that every single moment of his life he is reassessing his situation. Is he doing it for the sake of Allah? Is he doing it for the Akhirah? Or is he doing it for other than that? And even his normal actions would be involved in that. Is he speaking? Is he joking? Is he getting angry? Is he getting sad for the sake of Allah, or is he not? This is why it's extremely difficult to reassess your situation at every single moment of your life. Is definitely the hardest thing that a person can ever do. And this is why, unfortunately, most of us, the Muslim Ummah, is going through what it's going through, is because we are far away from the attitude of the Salaf. if we had the attitude of Salaf, we would have a lot of barakah in our mindsets, in our hearts, in our piety, and then obviously in our actions. But unfortunately, it's as if now, especially with the age of technology and social media and restaurants and whatever you have that helps in aiding wasting time, it is as if it included the people within the realm of Salafiyya, those people who feel that they are the closest to Allah, included within that. And I'm sure I've mentioned this before, is that people have this idea where they just like to switch off. Friday night, Saturday night, or you're with your family, let's just switch off, as if there is an aspect of your life which is not regulated by the Kitab and the Sunnah. So you will find them, and unfortunately you find even Tullab al-Ilm, I've seen this in Saudi Arabia, and they're following football, and they're following all these different things that only Allah knows about, that's happening in the UK here, and they've gone all the way over there to seek knowledge. And when they want to just switch off, I use with the quotation marks, then you will find them engaging in things that are not befitting for the Talib al-Ilm, let alone, or befitting for the Muslim, let alone Talib al-Ilm. Now this is not to say that you have to be in a constant state of worship. That's not the point here. The point here is that you need to reassess your situation. What are you doing and why are you doing it? And definitely people are weak. People have weaknesses. People need to relax. That's fair enough. There's no doubt about that. But my point here is that even things that people are using in their spare time to relax and to unwind and to enjoy, it is as if they don't want to think about whether that is from the religion or if it's conflicting the religion or even being detrimental to the religion at sometimes. And this is why this aspect of what Sufyan rahimahullah said is extremely important. How many times do you review, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing this thing for the sake of Allah? Is this thing even halal that I am doing? And unfortunately many Muslims have become negligent on this. So the first scenario is where a person has done a deed and from the outset he doesn't want to do it for the sake of Allah. And we've said that this is a form of minor shirk. And more explanation on this, like I said, you can find in Kitab Tawheed. A second scenario is where there is a connection between the intention and the acts of worship. This has been mentioned by Imam al-Tabari, but also others from the ulama like Ibn Uthaymeen in his own Sharh of Arba'in Nawawiyah. He said, if the beginning of the action or any action where your niyyah becomes infiltrated is connected to the action that you are doing, then the whole action will become nullified. What does that mean? If, for example, you want to make a donation, so you take the money out and at this point you are doing it for the sake of Allah, no doubt. You saw the plight, you saw a little girl crying, your heart trembled, here's the money for you, my daughter. But then somebody comes and he sees, oh mashallah, you're quite generous, I didn't know you were so warm-hearted, etc. And then you think, yeah, actually I am. Now that there's been a connection, that connection has been cut off, that action is completed, that doesn't affect the action which you have done. Yeah? Whether you're sinful for that second scenario or not, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the action and the niyyah. However, another scenario, if a person comes into the masjid, there's nobody there, says Allahu Akbar, and he thinks to himself, you know what, I'm going through a hard period in my life, or I'm going through a nice period in my life, and I want to make this long. I want to speak to Allah. So then you stop. And then when you're in the second rak'ah and you're reciting the third juz of Surah Baqarah and you're taking your time, somebody comes in and he's looking at you. And now you know that he's looking at you. And you think, okay, I'm just going to start Al Imran now. I'll carry on, I'll do Surah Nisa. You make it long. You make the ruku very nice as well. You might even start reciting out loud. Then check your voice out. This is now connected from the first rak'ah until the last one. Now, because it's all connected, the whole act of worship becomes tainted. The whole act of worship becomes tainted. This will be mentioned by, like I said, the ulama, Imam Tabari, before Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah. A third scenario now is when the act is completely completed, and you have completely gone away from it, and then people are talking about it. So a man, he's gone for Hajj, he's come back from Hajj, maybe 6 months later, so yeah, he's a Haji, he went for Hajj, and he met so and so, and he did so and so, and he did all of these things, he did all of these righteous actions whilst he was there. All of that has been cut off from the act of worship itself. Imam Ahmad, Hassan al-Basri, Imam al-Tabari, and many others from the ulama have said that this does not affect your ikhlas. In fact, this is a sign of goodness and acceptance from Allah. ألا إن أولياء الله لا خوف عليهم ولا يحزنون الذين آمنوا وكانوا يتقون لهم بشرى في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة. Those people who have iman, taqwa, they are the ones who are close to Allah, and they are the ones that Allah has accepted as being their friends, and for them they have a bushra, they have a glad tidings in the dunya and the akhirah. And the companions even asked the Prophet ﷺ what happens when we talk about our actions once they are completed. The Prophet ﷺ said, Tilka ajila bushra al-mu'min. This is the hastened good news that the mu'min gets in the dunya. The hastened one, because he's waiting for the big one. When you die, تتنزل عليهم الملائكة. Ibn al-Qayyim mentions in Kitab al-Ruh that we've been around a person, he's passing away. He's knocked out, unconscious, in a coma, all of a sudden. Imagine there's no intensive unit or nothing. All of a sudden he gets up, says, Wa alaykum as-salam, ahlan wa sahlan, ijlis hana, come sit down. He's talking, nobody can see anything. Ibn al-Qayyim said, I have witnessed this with my own eyes. تتنزل عليهم الملائكة. The angels will come down when you need it the most. That is the bushra that we are all waiting for. Ask Allah to give us a good end upon iman and tawheed, and that Allah is pleased with us at that moment. But the Prophet ﷺ told the companions, Tilka ajil al-bushra al-mu'min, is that when you have a sense of satisfaction, when people are pleased, not in the sense that you become proud and you become arrogant, but the believer likes to attach himself to goodness, and other believers attach themselves to goodness of other believers. That's how human nature works. So if you have done a good deed and other people are speaking in praise of that good deed, and it's not affecting your iman and it's not making you arrogant, then this is a sign of glad tidings in the dunya. Prophet ﷺ said also, فَإِذَا أَتْلَعَ عَلَيْهِ أَعْجَبُ فَقَالَ لَهُ أَجْرَانِ أَجْرُ السِّرِّ وَأَجْرُ الْعَلَانِيَةِ. This has been mentioned by Ibn Rajab in his book Jami' al-Ulum. And Prophet ﷺ said, if something good comes about to him and people are talking about him, or he is talking about something that he has done, and the Prophet ﷺ said that he will have two rewards. He will have two rewards. One reward for actually doing that act of worship whilst other people didn't know about it, and then a second separate reward when people knew about it. So imagine you have, some of the Salaf have narrated that I have fasted for 40 years and my wife didn't even know about it. I fasted for 40 years and my wife didn't even know about it. Could you imagine that? I even know some people that in winter they used to fast and nobody in their family knew about it. Nobody. He used to go to work, he used to come home, it's Maghrib already. You don't have breakfast this morning? No, I wasn't hungry. Imagine. Oh, I'm on a diet. You can say these kind of things, The Prophet ﷺ, lahu ajran, ajru sir wa ajru alaniya. And then if it becomes apparent afterwards, He will have a second reward. There's also another hadith that Imam al-Albani made sahih in his silsila sahih. Prophet ﷺ said, Ahlul Jannah min mil' Allah ta'ala. Ahlul Jannah are from those people who mil' Allah ta'ala udhnayhim min thana. That those people are praised with Allah, and Allah praises them and allows for people min thana khayrun wa huwa yasma', that He allows and He gives people to give tawfiq to praise that person for that good deed, and Allah is listening to them for it. Prophet ﷺ said that Ahlul Jannah are praised for their good deeds. Ahlul Jannah are praised for their good deeds by men, and Allah gives them tawfiq, these people, to praise one another, and Allah is listening to this praise that they have for one another. وأهل النار من ملأ الله تعالى with the name in ثناء الناس شرا وهو يسمع. The people of fire are complete opposite. Allah has granted, and if you like to use the word guided, them to saying bad things about one another. Allah understand, Allah protect us. It makes me laugh, it makes me chuckle, because Allah protect us. Imagine what's happening outside right now, and imagine where we are right now, and imagine this hadith now. It's tawfiq, wallahi ladhim, it's tawfiq. And those people, this door is free, nobody is charging you. It's a very comfortable environment, and Allah is listening to those people who praise one another and help one another, assist one another. Allah is listening, and He's giving us tawfiq to do this with one another. And Allah Jalla wa Ala from above His arsh is listening to us. But those people, the opposite, Ahlul Nar, Allah Ta'ala, the name in Thana, Nas, Sharra wa huwa yasma. They talk about each other's evilness, and Allah is listening to them. What this hadith tells us, my brothers, and what this hukam itself also tells us, is that the believer is somebody that should be optimistic. Unfortunately, what we find within Salafiyah is a high level of wretchedness, or a high level of strictness, and not much softness. Not really, if you think about it. And I even had this discussion with Sheikh Salih al-Haydan, rahimahullah, hafidhullah, Allah yashfi wa yahfadhu. I asked him the question of Imam Malik, where the person came to him and he said, كيف الاستواء? How is istiwa? Imam Malik said, istiwa ma'lum. وكيف المجهول? We don't know how it is, but Allah is above His arsh. وسوال عنه بدعة. And don't ask about it. إيمان به واجب وسوال عنه بدعة. We have to believe in it, and asking about it is bid'ah. And he commanded that this man be ejected from the majlis. And he said, I don't see you except as somebody who's a troublemaker, a person of heresy. Leave. So I asked him, I go, look, what is the default when it comes to the Salaf? Because if you take this incident, and we find, I didn't say this to him, but if you take this incident, you find a lot of the Salafis modeling themselves on such behavior from the Salaf. Harshness, rigidness, ejecting one another. I mean, this is quite common. I don't need to go into this. So I asked him, how do we understand this narration of Imam Malik? Why would he do such a thing? Or is this the default? Maybe I'm wrong. Sheikh Salih al-Hidan, he said, La tunaffir. Do not tunaffir. Don't repel other people from the da'wah. That's not the objective. That is not the objective. Because what you have to deal with people is with softness and manners and kindness. And if harshness will instill that kindness and softness, then you can have it for that one aspect, but it's not the default. It is not the default. The reason why he did this with this man, because he saw him as being one of the heads of the innovators. He saw him as being a troublemaker, and that the maslahah, the greater good, was to eject this man from the sitting so that nobody else would be affected, and everybody would know Imam Malik's statement or his stance upon such a statement and question. because you're asking how is Allah? Imagine that in the very early stages of Islam, it's not heard of. Now it's a quite common, this in the Bab of Aqidah, questioning things. But at that time, nobody questioned. So to come out with a question like that is extremely brave, and it's extremely dangerous. So the point here is that if we look at this hukm and this aspect where people are praising one another, and the ulama have said that it's actually a good sign from Allah that He's given tawfiq for us to aid one another in saying nice things, encouraging, building, then this is something that the Sharia actually sees as being tilka ajr bushra Muslim. They see it as a bushra, they see it as a glad tidings. But unfortunately, many of us are quite far away from such an attitude. Ask Allah to rectify us and our communities. So to conclude, Shaykh Hafidh ibn Rajab rahimahullah said that Riya is extremely dangerous. Riya is extremely dangerous because you don't know which category yourself is going to fall into. Having no ikhlas from the outset is extremely dangerous as it is, but now we can see that even when you're in the action, having established it for the sake of Allah alone, you can still be corrupted with this minor form of shirk. Allahumma musta'an. Allah protect us. Riya is extremely dangerous because the Salaf feared that they couldn't get their niyyah right. Like we said, Sufyan al-Thawri, he feared he goes, for my whole life, the biggest struggle has not been talab al-ilm, not been reciting Quran, not been getting off at tahajjud, not fasting in Ramadan in the summer hot days, not making hajj even when there were no aeroplanes. The biggest thing that he had to struggle with in his life is getting his niyyah correctly. Why? Because there's always a battle between ikhlas and riya, dunya and akhirah. There's always that battle. So the question now, how about those people who create a monopoly for religion, who want to give themselves self-entitlement because they feel themselves being too pious or overly pious? And it's unfortunate that we find this within our communities. This is the first principle, which is talking about people's actions, your actions or somebody else's actions. Another principle that we can get from this statement of the Prophet ﷺ, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, is that a person, this is a qaida, so now we're talking about principles, we're talking about law. So the first law is that it is permissible for you to talk about the good of one another. It is permissible, but this comes with conditions and it comes with scenarios where it could actually fall into shirk. So the second principle we have now, a person is rewarded for an action even if he doesn't do it. If a person has the niyyah to do the action from the mercy of your Lord Ar-Rahman, is that He will reward you. The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith has been agreed upon, if a person, there's 4 things that he mentioned in this one hadith. If a person intends to do an action but he doesn't do it, you will get 1 reward. Even if you don't do it, from your Lord. If you do it, al-hasana bi-ashri amthaliha. You do a deed, Allah will multiply it by 10 for you. Does He need to do it for you? You're not even a ratio in His creation. Even if His whole creation gathered together, they cannot benefit or harm Allah in the slightest. But you, 1 little speck, all He wants from you is to have tawheed. That's all He wants. You have tawheed, look how much magnitude and virtue and reward and mercy and benevolence and generosity He can give to you. Even though we are imperfect, we'll never thank Him to the degree that is due, and we are all imperfect. He will multiply it by 10 for you. If you want to do a bad deed, but you leave it for the sake of Allah, what happens? You will get 1 reward Subhanallah. You get one reward. Imagine your mother is there in front of you, and you're thinking about disobeying your mother, and then you think to yourself, actually I'm not going to do it. Imagine your mother turned around and said to you, here's a reward. Would anybody do that? Would anyone even think about that? A minute ago you were going to disobey me, you were going to do something bad, but here, now that you're not going to do it, I'm going to pay you your reward. It's Rahman. Yeah.
And if the person intends to do the bad and then follows it up.
So now, if a person does the bad, he wants to do the bad, and he follows it up, what does he get? 1 sin or 10? That would be just, isn't it? If he give you 10. If he's giving you 10 for good, then he should give you 10 for bad. He'll give you 1 for bad. That's the hadith that's agreed upon. There's another hadith that the Prophet ﷺ commands the angel, stop. The hadith mentions 6 hours. Maybe he'll repent. And if he repents, rub it off. I don't remember the reference right now. I'll get you the reference, bi'idhnillah. May Allah gather us with one another and our families with Him in the Jannah. But the question here now is that if you want to do a good deed, but you don't do the good deed, will it be multiplied for you? No, it will not. You want to do the good deed, but you don't do the good deed, will it be multiplied? Ulama have said that it will not be multiplied. The third principle: are you accounted for your thoughts? Based on this hadith in Al-A'mal bin-Niyyah, but also this hadith that we just mentioned now. What do you think? Are you accounted for your thoughts?
It depends what part counts as waswasa and what actually counts.
No, this is thoughts. Thoughts. It's an action. I want to listen to music. We're just talking about, this is my intention right now. Allah protect us and preserve us and help those people to find a cure for those people who are going through whatever they're going through. But my question here, hypothetically, I want to do something bad, and I'm thinking about it, and I'm going to do it.
No, it's based on hadith. Based on the hadith you just mentioned. No, there's no hadith.
But the hadith that was just mentioned, that if you want to do it, then you will get a sin, but if you leave it, then you'll get a good deed. So but then if you carry it forward, okay, khalas, yeah, okay, if you carry it forward.
You're talking about before the intentions even come in, right? It's just a thought.
No, okay, now here there is a difference. This is the same question here. There's a difference between what the ulama have said, irada or niyyah, and hum and waswasa. So it comes across your head, I want to do something bad. You think, astaghfirullah, what kind of a thought is that? That's waswasa or hum. It could be from shaitan, it could be from your own desires, but you've repelled it. Now you have an irada and a niyyah. You've got a firm intention. After work, I'm going to go home and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. You've not done it yet because you're still at work. The question here now, the ulama have differed. Now some of the ulama have said that no, it's not in the hadith. It's not in the hadith. Therefore, it's not an action. Yusuf, what's 10 plus 10? His name Yusuf, eh? Huh? Luqman, sorry. 10 plus 10, what's 10 plus 10? 20. Did you think about that? Sort of. When you are doing an action in your brain, the other ulama, the counter argument is that it is an action. If you are thinking about something, then it is an action. 10 plus 10, 10 times 10, it's an action. If you have to think about it, you're doing it, then that is an action in itself. So now, also there's another hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said that a person wants to do a bad deed, but he doesn't get to do it, then him wanting to do that bad deed and the person who does the bad deed, lahum fi wizri sawa, they are equal in their sin. Obviously one is more because he's actually gone and done something, and the implications are going to be worse. But the intention is there for the person who wants to do the bad thing. And the same thing the Prophet ﷺ said before that about the person who wants to do a good thing. He sees his brother doing something good, but I can't do that good thing. Maybe Allah has given him something that I'm not able to do. Prophet ﷺ said, "Lahum fil ajri sawa." So based on your intention, it's an action that you are doing. Therefore, are you accounted for your thoughts? Now we need to think. Is it a thought? If it's not a thought, then khalas. But if it is a thought, if it is something that is settled and you have a niyyah for it, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, then that internal engagement that you're going with yourself is an action. And you will be held to account for that. That's principle number 3. Principle number 4, connected to this hadith, but also the hadith that we just mentioned a moment ago, is a person rewarded for doing something and leaving something. So now we're talking about the level of reward. When is a person rewarded for his intention? Or punished for his intention even? We have 4 scenarios. Number 1, if a person has firm resolve, he has a firm niyyah to do something, whether it's, he's firm resolve to do something good, let's say something good, but then leaves it for no reason, he just leaves it, then there is no reward for him. Because like we talked about before, one of the conditions for your niyyah is that it has to be continual. And you have to follow through. So if you say, for example, tomorrow I'm going to fast. Yeah, I'm going to fast tomorrow. Are you rewarded for that? No, because you've just stopped, you've cut it off, and you've not done anything about it afterwards. Yeah.
It's been what you said earlier.
Yeah.
How's that different to when someone intends something and actually gets a reward?
A person intends to do something, but so that hadith that we were talking about, if a person intends to do something but he's not able to carry it forward, then he gets one reward for it. So say for example, I want to go for Hajj, but then visa doesn't come through, you'll still be rewarded. But you won't be rewarded like the person who comes back sinless, for example. But here we are talking about a person who wants to do something, but he just leaves it. No real reason, but he just leaves it. There's no reward for such a person. That's number 1. That's the first scenario. If a person has firm resolve to do something bad, we're talking about now, something bad, then he leaves it for the sake of Allah, not for the sake of the creation, he leaves it for the sake of Allah, then he will be rewarded. And he will have one good ajr or hasana for it. And that's based on this hadith. And this is a discussion that I had with Shaykh Sulaiman Ruhaili, hafidhahullah, where some of the ulama have said that he needs to make tawbah. Because we've just talked about now, because this goes back to the masala we were just talking about. I want to go home and do such and such sin, may Allah preserve us. Now, the person has thought about the action, it's settled in his heart. Now, if you are saying that he's actually thought about it, and he's contemplated it, and he's saying, this is how I'm going to do it, and this is my strategy, and I'm going to do this, then he has planned. He's got it in his head. And all of that strategy has to have an action connected to it internally. And if there is an action internally, then there has to be any action, like the Prophet ﷺ said, وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَىٰ. Everyone will have what they intended. Every action. Is there tawbah now? If he goes home and thinks, astaghfirullah, what am I doing? Does he have to make tawbah? Some ulama say, yes, he has to make tawbah. he has to make tawbah. But based on this hadith, and this is what Shaykh Sulaiman Ruhaili said also, based on this hadith, the changing of the niyyah is sufficient and he doesn't need to make tawbah. So this is now the second point. Second point is, if you want to do something bad, you leave it for the sake of Allah, you don't need to do an extra tawbah, and Allah will replace or give him a reward for leaving it. Shaykh Sulaiman explained that the reason why he doesn't need to make tawbah is because that niyyah, which was something impure, has changed itself to becoming pure. It's not a separate action that needs tawbah for. Does that make sense? So if you have, for example, a cup of water which is najis, can you drink it? Can you make wudu with it? Can you do ghusl? No, you can't. But now if you take that najasa out, if you take that impurity out, you put it in through, I don't know, a filter system or something, and it comes out, do you need to clean it again? No, you don't need to, because it's changed in itself. You don't need to do anything else on top of it. So this is the same parable. If you have a niyyah, and that niyyah itself changes from being something impure to pure, then you don't need a separate tawbah for that. Type. Third scenario, if a person has firm resolve to do something good or bad, so now the first one was good, second one was bad. This one is good or bad, but now he wants to do it, either good or bad, but he doesn't have the ability to see it through. Or he is in a state of fear for doing that thing, good or bad. A person wants to go home and do something bad, but realizes that his whole family are there, and he doesn't want to do whatever he wants to do in front of his family. Will he be sinful? This is the question now. A person wants to do something good, he wants to go for Hajj, he wants to do a good deed, and he's done everything that he can do. Qadr Allah, something happens, he's not able to do it. He doesn't have the ability. Will he be rewarded? Will he be sinful? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. He will be sinful, or he will be rewarded. Because now here the person's niyyah has not changed. It's something external which is preventing him. طيب. And this is based on the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said lahum fil ajri sawa, and he said lahum fil wizri sawa. The person wants to do the good, or the person wants to do the bad, but there is an external factor which is stopping him from doing so. The fourth scenario in this qaida, in this principle, if a person has firm resolve, he has firm resolve to do something, but he optionally doesn't take the means to do it, then he has no reward. But will he be sinful? So now this is the good way that we're saying. So for example, he wants to fast tomorrow, then he doesn't put his alarm on for suhoor, he doesn't do anything about it, then he's not rewarded. The intention, he hasn't followed it through. But a sin, he wants to do a sin, but he's not taken the steps to do that sin, then he will be sinful for his niyyah. So he will still be sinful for his niyyah, but not for obviously seeing the action through. طيب? So this is, now we're talking about reward based on your niyyah. What principle are we now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Principle number 5. Is it permissible for you to combine the dunya and the akhirah when you're doing a good deed? إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى. Every single person will have what he intended. Can you intend the dunya and the akhirah at the same time? This is the question. Some of the ulama have said it's not possible for you to intend the dunya and the akhirah at the same time. Allah says in the Quran, "Man kana yuridu al-ajila," whoever wants the dunya, ajjalna lahu fiha ma nasha liman nurid. We will give him whatever he wants from the dunya. ثم جعلنا له جهنم. In the akhirah, all he will have is the hellfire. ومن أراد الآخرة وسعى لها سعيها وهو مؤمن. Whoever wants the akhirah and he does all his deeds for the sake of Allah and seeking the akhirah and he's a believer, then Allah will give him a thankful reward. Some of the ulama have said that there's no in between. طيب, what about war booty? It's well known that this is one of the arguments from the counter side, that the companions used to go and take part of expeditions so that they can have a dunyawi benefit as something following on from the akhirah, or the intention of the akhirah. So they're going for the sake of Allah with the Messenger of Allah. But hopefully if they win this expedition, they can do X, Y and Z in that new land. So this is the counter argument. Shaykh Sa'd al-Shithri, he's adamant of the first opinion. And I've never really had a discussion with him on this. But he basically said that you cannot combine the intention for the dunya and the akhirah. He said, for example, if a person wants to pray Salatul Istisqa or go on an expedition for the sake of booty, because this is the counter argument. Why do you pray Istisqa? Istisqa is when there's a drought. I had a lot of water and the crops are dying, the animals are suffering from starvation, etc. So the Imam makes an announcement, all the masajid, you establish the rain prayer. Rain prayer is established just like the Eid prayer. He comes after Shuruq, he prays the Salah just like Eid prayer, 7 takbirah in the first one, 5 takbirah in the second one, and he gives the talk, and they make dua collectively in the khutbah and individually after the khutbah, asking for Allah's supplication. The counter argument, the second group of scholars have said, look, you are coming to make this dua, you are coming, the whole establishment of this prayer and the khutbah is so that you benefit the dunya. Yeah? We want crops, we want water. The Shaykh said, no, the counter argument to that is you're doing it for the sake of Allah. You've come to the musalla or to the masjid and you've established the salah and you've established the khutbah, you've made istighfar, you've given sadaqah, you've done all of these things for the sake of Allah. If it rains because Allah is happy with you, then this is a bonus. If it rains because Allah is happy with you, then this is a bonus. War booty, same sort of thing. You're going for the sake of Allah. If you get it, if you don't get it, then that has not affected you in the slightest.
What about sadaqah? If you give it for the sake of Allah, in order obviously to gain Allah's pleasure, for Him to remove your sins and to extinguish the fire of Jannah from yourself, but also for the intention of Allah to increase your wealth.
They say, the Shaykh Sa'd and the ulama have said that were of the opinion where he said that you can't combine the dunya and the akhirah. Well, they were saying that all of the dunyawi benefits come after you seek in the akhirah. You seek the akhirah, Allah will make your dunya open. Just like we see in the ayah. كَلَّا بَلْ تُحِبُّونَ الْعَاجِلَةَ وَتَذَرُونَ الْآخِرَةَ. If you do the other way, make the akhirah, then Allah will help you in your dunya. This is the counter argument. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah mentions an incident of Abu Hamid al-Ghazali. Imam al-Ghazali in the beginning was an Ashari, he was a Sufi, but he died upon Ahl Sunnah. And he had this thing where he heard that a person, if he goes and makes dhikr and isolates himself for 40 days, if he isolates himself for 40 days, then he will get a level of enrichment and wisdom in the dunya that nobody else can get. So Ibn Taymiyyah is saying that Ghazali heard about this. So Ghazali said, I'm going to go for this, I'm going to do this, I want this level of spirituality and wisdom. So he went and he recorded, he said, I stayed there for 40 days but nothing happened to me. So he went to one of his sheikhs and he complained, he goes, look, I went for 40 days and I don't feel myself improved in my iman, I don't see any kind of extra wisdom or anything like that. So the righteous person said to him, you are not sincere for the sake of Allah. You are only sincere for the sake of attaining wisdom. You are only sincere for the sake of the dunya. So Ibn Taymiyyah, commenting on this, he said, and that is because a person's intention becomes solely the attainment of knowledge or wisdom or anything that you want to do, if you want to gain that dunyawi benefit, then you will not benefit from the religion. And Allah knows your intention, Allah knows your niyyah. But if you seek Allah's sincerity and His akhirah, then Allah will give you things that you will not even imagine. So imagine if Ghazali went out seeking this wisdom and he did it for the sake of Allah, Allah would have opened the doors and given him much more than what he thought he was getting. This is what Ibn Taymiyyah mentioned. So if a person intends to be sincere with Allah, to become a scholar, or to become pious, or to have wisdom, or to do any kind of good deed, but doesn't make Allah the default in that, then what he is doing, he's making his niyyah something inferior rather than the superior. Right? So then Ibn Taymiyyah goes on and he says that this is when the dunya and the akhirah with one another becomes corrupted. But it is possible, and majority of the ulama have said that it is possible for a person to seek a dunyawi benefit and be a person who has ikhlas at the same time. To seek a dunyawi benefit and for a person to seek ikhlas at the same time. And these, the same arguments, it depends how you look at it. But wallahu a'lam, this seems to be the most correct opinion, where a person can, as long as he has ikhlas from the outset, and we talked about this from the very beginning. If you have ikhlas from the outset, and that level of ikhlas continues until the end of the action, then whatever you get from the praise or any kind of benefit from the dunya, then that's irrelevant. That has not affected your level of ikhlas in that action from the very beginning. But if it infiltrates at any time, then it depends. Is it connected to the actual act of worship or is it not? We looked at that before. Right. The sixth principle, is it permissible for us to combine niyyahs? Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. The actions are by intentions. وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ. Can you combine an intention? Arafah is Monday. I fast Mondays. Can I combine the intention? What do you think? Yeah? So I can get the two rewards with one fasting. What do you think? Huh? Depends. Why does it depend?
You combine that masjid with the sunnah.
Excellent.
I don't know
I mean, with Arafah, he said if you have a fast that you need to make up from Ramadan,
Yeah,
just Arafah, you get.
exactly. And if you have another intention, you can get 3 rewards. Yeah? If it's Monday, if it's Qada, and if it's Arafah, and you've intended all 3 of these, then according to one view, you will get 3 rewards. The ulama, we'll come to this mas'ala in a minute, but the ulama have said that you can combine niyyahs as long as one of those actions is not a specific action. Does that make sense? So for example, if a person wants to pray Tahiyatul Masjid, but at the same time wants to make this from the Sunan Rawatib of Salatul Fajr, can he combine it? Yes, he can. Why? Because the first one is not a specific niyyah. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا دَخَلْتُمْ أَحَدُكُمْ فِي الْمَسْجِدِ. If any of you come to the masjid, فَلَا يَجْلِسْ حَتَّى يُصَلِّي رَكَعَتِينَ. Don't sit down until you've prayed 2 raka'at. These 2 raka'at, does it have a specific niyyah? No, it doesn't. It could be anything. The Prophet ﷺ just pray 2 raka'at before you sit down. This could be any 2 raka'at. Yeah? So now there is no specific niyyah for the first act of worship, but there is a specific for the second act of worship, which is the sunnah of Fajr. So now you can combine it because the first one is not specified. Does that make sense? Yeah? Because the first action is not sort of in and of itself.
one is not.
But the second one is specific.
So if you pray for
Because this is for Fajr, it's connected to a specific time or a specific place. Or
can you combine like Fard of Isha with another sunnah?
can we combine Fard with Sunnah? What's the answer? No, why not? Because both of them are specific. Both of them have its own separate classification and reward. Does that make sense? But if you have an option, if you have an optional action, completely option. Can you combine that with something which is sunnah or fard? Yes, you can. So this is where the mas'ala comes in with Arafah. Here, go on.
What about duha and after making wudu?
Now this is the issue. I had this discussion with Sheikh Saleh Sadlan, Allah have mercy on him and illuminate his grave. What an excellent man that man was. I asked him, if I have missed the 2 raka'at of Salat al-Fajr, the rawatib, can I pray after the sun has risen with the intention of sunnah rawatib for Fajr and Salat al-Duha? This is the same mas'ala here. Because now I'm asking here, is the duha, is that something specific or is it not something specific? If it's not something specific, then I can pray 2 with that 2 intentions, and then I say, khalas, 2 rak'ah is done. And I've got both the rewards. Yeah? The Shaykh said no. Salat al-Duha comes with its own ruling, and it comes with its own reward, and it is a specific act of worship for a specific part of the day. Does that make sense? Therefore, you'd have to pray 2 for duha, and you have to pray 2 for making up the sunnah of Fajr rawatib. So now the point here is, if it is something which is optional, you can combine that. If it is something which is specific, you can't combine that. So now the next principle or law is, do specific actions need a specific niyyah? Following on from that, do specific actions need a specific niyyah? And the majority of the ulama say that the specific actions need specific niyyats. And this is where the khilaf comes from. The Hanafis and the Hanbalis say that you can combine Arafah with another intention. You can combine Arafah with another. Why? Because fasting on Arafah on that day is not a specific fast per se. This is their argument. So if it's not a specific fast per se, then you can have any intention and combine it, and as long as you fasted on that day, then Allah is going to be pleased with you. احتسبوا من الله أن يكفر سنة الماضية وسنة المستقبل وسنة التي قبلها. So fasting on that day can be any fast as long as you have fasted. And this is the opinion of Uthaymeen and many other scholars. The Malikis and the Shafis of the opinion say no. Fasting on Arafah comes on a specific day with a specific reward, therefore it cannot be combined. And wallahi, I think this seems to be the stronger opinion. So to answering that question, can you combine Monday with or qada, for example, with Arafah? I would say personally the answer is no. Because that is specific and that is specific. That is like fard and this is like sunnah, and you're combining the intentions. But the counter argument for that is that fasting on Arafah is a nafil fast. And it's not sunnah. So if it's a nafil fast, then you can combine anything you want with it.
What about qada and Monday and Thursday?
Qada, again, Monday. Why are you fasting Monday? Because it's a Monday and it's an optional fast. So if you fast now on next Monday because it's a qada, and you think because it is Monday, and because you think it's Dhul Hijjah, or maybe Muharram is coming out and the Prophet ﷺ told us to increase the fasting in Muharram, then you will get rewarded multiplied, because none of them are specific per se. That makes sense?
Because what if it's Arafah and a qada, and take the opinion of...
If you have taken the opinion of a scholar and you have trusted him in that opinion, then inshallah it's sufficient. If you're convinced by that argument, we've looked at this before in the seminars, etc. If you are comfortable and you are happy with the person that is saying and the dalil that he's presenting, then this is sufficient. But if you feel that this is wrong, or there's an opinion which is stronger, or it's not in line with the dalil, which is where I am at personally, then I would say that the reward has not been established. Allahu a'lam. So inshallah we will continue with the remaining principles. We have a few more principles that we have left, but just to continue, because point number 6 and 7 are connected. Combining niyat is allowed as long as one of them is not specific. The second one, do specific actions need a specific niyyah? And we said yes, they do. But an offshoot of that, or a circumstance or scenario that comes from this, is that when you want to do an act of worship and a person has an intention to do an act of worship, but there's been a long gap between the action and the niyyah, is that sufficient? Because now we are talking about specific acts. So for example, a person wakes up at 3:30 and he says, I'm going to pray the sunan of rawatib of Salat al-Fajr in about 45 minutes. I've made the niyyah right now. 45 minutes later, without any niyyah, without anything, it's been a long time, and he just says Allahu Akbar and he starts praying. Is that correct or not? The majority of the ulama have said that he needs to have a specific niyyah, because he's doing a specific act of worship, and if there's been a long time, then it has been cut. But some of the ulama have said that there is no cut and the intention is still established. This is just a sub point per se, and we'll look at the remaining 4 or 5 principles that have been mentioned by Ibn Rajab in his explanation, and also others from the ulama that we have gathered here, and then we will summarize some of the benefits that we can also gain from this first hadith of the Prophet ﷺ from Imam Nawawi's 40 hadith. And bi'idhnillah, if we have a chance, we will start the second hadith next week. I ask Allah to make this beneficial for us all, and that He doesn't make haram for us the ajr that He has for His believers in the dunya and the akhirah, and that He unites us and our family members under His arsh, and that we have peace and security and serenity in our dunya and our akhirah. هذا والله أعلم. صلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. I believe there's about 10 minutes till adhan. Is the adhan now? Yeah. Listen to the adhan, and if there's any questions after the adhan, we can take them.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
So I think we've got about 4 minutes to the iqamah. Yeah.
Shall be seen in forms of dreams.
Prophet ﷺ said, "Ru'ya salihah, bushra al-mu'min," or bushra. The good dream is also a form, juz'un min nubuwwah, as well as another hadith that is a sign of glad tidings and is part of prophethood. It's from the 46 parts of prophethood. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, Ibn Uthaymeen and others from the ulama have said the reason why 46 is because if you divide it by 2, it becomes 23. 23 is the period of the Prophet ﷺ's prophethood. And the reason why you divide it by 6 is because the Prophet ﷺ had periods of 6 months where he used to see things before he was a prophet. So they've said that dreams fit into that, being into 46 times. And the ulama have said that we don't get to see the Prophet ﷺ in the dunya, and this is one of the ways that we can be connected to his prophethood through seeing good dreams. So I mean, yes it is, but it's not exclusive to seeing good dreams. No.
Someone sees, like, if someone passed away and they're seeing it, and the mother's in a good state, and it's fine.
Sheikh Abdul Karim Qudair said a friend of his passed away, and he saw his son, his friend's son, and his friend's son came up to him, and he said to him, and this is one of our mashayikh from Riyadh, this is from the Kibar ulama, he said to him, I saw my father coming down from the sky wearing really nice white glowing clothes, and he came down to him and he said, my son, do not worry about me, I am in the best of state. So the son said to the father, he goes, how did you get in that state? He goes, Wallahi al-Azim, the Quran has assisted me in this station that I am in today. Shaykh Abdul Karim said that I know this man, he used to finish the Quran once every 3 days, constantly just reciting the Quran. He goes, he wasn't a shaykh, he wasn't anything, he was just a man, he established the salah, he used to be in the masjid, but he's connected to good deeds all the time. Many of the Salaf have seen things like this, and the ulama. So it is possible, definitely. Any more questions? Yeah, Hassan.
Just how do you understand like a sa'a in Sharia? So, obviously the last hour before Maghrib, according to the Hadith on Jumu'ah, is a time when dua is accepted, or
The ulama have explained that the word sa'a here in this hadith refers to a period of time. It doesn't necessarily mean 60 minutes. So the period of time between Maghrib, between Asr and Maghrib on Yawm al-Jum'ah, some of the Salaf used to make i'tikaf on a weekly basis during this time. They wouldn't even speak to them. Nobody would speak. They'd isolate themselves from the dunya, because it means a period of time, not 60 minutes. That's how we understand it. Any more questions? سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك.